Good morning, my creative friends. This is Dr. Minette Riordan, and this is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette, where I am live Monday to Thursday at 7 a.m. Mountain Time, working in my visual journal. And what I want for this particular Painting in Your PJs experience to be is I'm showing you how I work, and I want to encourage you to create along with me, whether you're creating with the same themes that I am or using this as creative time to work on your own projects and finishing up projects. But I love to gather and create and connect in community live. And I'm passionate about visual journaling as a creative process for getting to know ourselves better, for connecting to archetypes, images, myths, and metaphors. And this week and last week, we've been exploring the Jungian archetypes. There are 12 classic Jungian archetypes. And we started with the gifts and the shadows of the magician archetype. So you can kind of guess the myths and the shadows. Yesterday, we looked at the sage, that inner wisdom, knowledge loving aspect of us. And what I love about the sage is that they are explorers, but all of their exploration goes within, where our explorer or adventurer archetype seeks without. This archetype seeks within. And where we're going on our journey today is to the creator archetype. And I've already done some journaling and some writing this morning about the gifts in the shadow of the creator. Good morning, Marion. In order to get some of the notes down and my own writing down. My voice is a little tired today. I've been teaching a lot the last couple of days. And so, what I'm feeling, Jesso's got my pages stuck together, is that I want to just maybe get some color down on this page and maybe some oil pastel first and then some color as I talk about the creator and the creator archetypes. And my visual journaling practice has some pretty specific steps that I follow every time I approach the page, even though I don't always um, do the steps in the same order. I do like to follow these pretty specific steps. And the first step is usually to get some notes, handwriting, thoughts, some personal journaling down on the page. So the creator archetype could be, I'm curious what this oil pastel is going to do on top of this tape. Could be an artist, musician, philosopher. Well, the sage is more the philosopher. Sorry, the architect. I started coloring and I'm like all into my coloring, lose my thoughts. The architect, the inventor, a scientist, but the creator archetype is all about creativity, innovation, and bringing ideas forward. Bringing ideas forward. They are most excited about how to give life to their ideas, how to give life to their ideas, how to give them form and structure in the real world. And they get especially excited if those ideas are particularly innovative and non-conforming. So think about a Jackson Pollock or a Van Gogh or a Monet or an O'Keeffe or a Frida Kahlo, a Marie Curie on the scientist side, and Elon Musk. There's so many people, a Richard Branson, that fall into this creator archetype and that are known for their obsessiveness with those ideas, but also with their tremendous. Steve Jobs would be another creator archetype, the founder of Apple. But they have an amazing capacity to focus on their ideas and to bring them to life. They really honor and value individuality. And again, giving form to their ideas, bringing those ideas to life. So it doesn't matter if they are scientists, painters, dancers. So I'm just having some fun this morning, putting some marks on the page. I always love how the oil pastel creates some of these underlayers. Just getting a little bit of color on the page. This is just one of the ways that I get over the blank page and just begin to build up those layers. Handwriting and then adding some marks. Sometimes I might start with marks and the handwriting comes later. So the shadow side of the creator, similar to the sage that we talked about yesterday, the shadow side of the the creator is perfectionism. They can 100% be a prima donna. And I think it's where a lot of the sort of myths and history of that obsessive, fanatic, insane, creative come from, is because they do get obsessed with their ideas. They have a huge capacity for focus and going deep, but sometimes they cannot see the forest for the trees. They tend to live outside of reality, be disconnected from people because they are so obsessed with their own ideas and nothing matters. Picasso, in his lifetime, created 50,000 works of art. When you divide that across his lifetime, you know, he was creating more than one piece of art every single day, every single day. So the obsession with innovation, with novelty, with newness, and with giving form to ideas is that shadow side, the prima donna. They can like to play God. As I was doing my research, that was interesting in the sense of, you know, like being Zeus or the Greek gods, where they love destruction. They love to tear things down and rebuild them, often in their own image or idea. So there's lots to love about the creator and lots to be mindful of. And I often think about where in my own journey as an artist that I dip into creativity and imagination. And I love coming up with innovative ideas. I love being seen as individual, independent, original, unique. But maybe I would almost benefit sometimes with a little bit deeper focus, staying with an idea for longer, right? So there's a balance between having a lot of ideas, bringing those ideas to form and being obsessed with your ideas. And so I'm seeking where in the center excuse me, of all of this could I begin to find, where can I begin to find my own sense of individuality, originality, and innovation, and give it enough focus to bring it to form. I am one of those creatives who gets pulled down the path of too many bright, shiny ideas. I don't have that singularity of focus. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Yes, absolutely, Marion. Ideas are easy, implementation is hard. When I was working with creatives as a business coach for 10 years, that was the piece right there. They had so many bright, shiny ideas, but the implementing the ideas was the really challenging part. So I think I just want to come back over this with some gesso. If I can find my gesso here. And just sort of push all of this back, and then maybe I'm going to do a little bit of scribing or mark making to even bring some of that back again. And I know in here I've got my handy dandy sheets of paper so I don't get paint in places where I don't want it. It's like I know it's here somewhere. I just used them yesterday. There we go. That just then I'm not as tentative about sort of going over the edge of the page. And clearly I've got some glue and buildup on the end of my scraper here because the paint is you can see the scratches and marks in the paint, which normally would kind of bug me, and I would want that to be a little bit smoother, but in this instance it's creating some really interesting texture on the page. So for now I'm just going to go with that. And I love how by just putting gesso on there I can still see the layers underneath, but everything now feels like it's one layer. Maybe ready for a little bit of collage. I'm almost wishing I brought, oh, I do have some tissue paper. Maybe I'm going to add some tissue paper on the top of this. So I'm really going to tap into my creator today and just allow myself to be in a lot of experimentation. I've pulled a huge stack of images to find some of those focal point images, but the creator in me is wanting to play. Marion, I've often been a very practical creative. I used to save all my creative energy and focus for the holidays, for making things for people. I wanted things to be useful and have value, so coursework and blog post and writing books and all those kind of things. So definitely, and I'm learning to be an imperfect and impractical creative. This work serves me in so many different ways, but mostly it gets me out of the sort of product mode of creating something and into process mode and letting that journey take me. And it's definitely been a practice across time to allow myself to play in this way and not be attached to the outcomes. Okay, I'm going to hit this with the dryer and get my gesso nice and dry. Okay, calling that dry enough. And there's something about just that pausing to dry things that I find pleasing, that just gives me that opportunity. It's a little bit of spaciousness to look at my page differently. And what it started to say to me was that there's boldness in the creator, right? And so I wanted something a little bit bold. And I have a couple of pieces of this tissue with the Asian writing on it that I love. And I know that there's two pieces, but they do not want to come apart. So I'm just working, there we go. That's why it was actually folded in the center. So a friend of mine in Galita found these pieces on a, nope, not yet, on a Etsy site. And I think it was an old accounting ledger, and I just love them. So I'm feeling like I want some bold black marks on here. And I actually have, get some black paint. This paint's looking a little old and thick, so we'll see how it works for doing some stenciling. You don't want your paint to be too thick when you're working with stamps and stencils, and you don't want it to be too runny. It's definitely sort of a a magic mix in the middle. Just grabbing a makeup sponge, which is by far my favorite tool for applying paint to stamps and stencils. And I just buy big, inexpensive bags of them. Ulta is a great place to give them. Walmart, definitely they have them on Amazon. And this almost feels sort of like a building or a little bit architectural. See if I got paint on there. This is a handmade foam stamp. I love making my own stamps. I have to thank my friend Andrea Chebelou, who turned me on to making my own foam stamps, and now it's become a favorite activity and something I love to teach others to do. And it paint's just a little thicker than I wanted on, but I'm kind of liking maybe getting just some of these little architectural and again handmade stamps and stencils. That one was better. I'm getting my own marks, my own patterns onto the page, right? Getting my own, more of what's true to me, made by me. When you work with a lot of other people's stamps and stencils, they're so beautiful, but usually those stamps and stencils are recognizable. I was looking for my, are recognizable, but when you create your own, it just adds that little bit of originality. So I'm just adding a little bit of water to that black. I just want it to go on here a little bit better. There we go. That feels better. So one of the aspects of a creator is definitely that archetype personality. Okay. Fun. I don't know what it was about that bold blacks that were just calling me. Again, it doesn't matter. This is how we start to build up pages, even though I know so much of this might get covered up. Again, I'm just telling a story here about the creator archetype. And I'm just cleaning my stamp off on my scrap paper here. I think I'm going to come in with this crazy thing. Just burst. One of these days I can do a demo of how to make the foam stamps because it's really, really fun. All right. So I have a beautiful mess of a page here. Again, it's that moment to pause and make a decision about where am I going with this page. Just sort of looking at it, and I think I'm going to focus right here on the gifts of the creator for this session today. Don't know if I'll get both pages done, we'll see, but I'm going to focus here for a minute. But what I like so far is that just like yesterday, I'm working with the gifts and the shadow of the creator, and I want there to be a common story, a color story, right? Something that pulls the pages together because they're two halves of a whole. And I said this yesterday, but I'll say it again that I love how Sina Frost talked about what the shadow is in her soul collage facilitator training and work. And really, shadow means an exaggeration of our gifts. We're out of balance. So even a gift can become a shadow. So when I think about when I do get obsessive about an idea and I can't let go of it, and it's all I'm thinking about and living and breathing, that pulls me into the shadow side of the creator instead of the innovative, imaginative, dreamy side of the creative. And I want to live kind of in balance and in the middle of both of those. All right, I think I want to add a little bit of collage on here. Just seeing, oh, I kind of like that face, kind of feels like the creator. Going to bring some black and white, I think, into the page. And maybe just in a few little places, I may want to be able to go back and scrape back that paint to get to some of those fun, colorful marks from the oil pastel underneath. So I'm just doing some ripping. I love ripping paper. It feels so good. And it keeps me out of perfection, right? It keeps me out of perfection. You can't be perfect when you're tearing paper. Let's see. Thought I had a little bit more. Do a little bit more of this beautiful paper. Which I love because it's kind of translucent and I'm going to be able still to see some of what's going on in the background. So when I think about the creator, we think about the musician as well. And I'm probably going to save a couple of pieces for over here too. Now it's almost feeling like it's too black underneath, that I've buried some of for the gift side of the creative, that I have buried some of that bright color. And as I start to layer those images on there, I'm like, okay, that's not quite it. And so just trusting that process. So I'm going to get this black nice and dry with my dryer, and then I'm going to come back in over the top with a brighter color for our creator. Again, as I sit and just give myself permission to look at that page, the color blue just popped into my head. So I am going to come in. This one may be too old. These Nova paints are a few years old and they have not loved the Colorado dryness very much, but I still love these paints. So again, trusting my own process, just coming back in, pushing all of these different layers. It's almost like if there's layers and layers of ideas, layered one on top of the other, all kind of waiting to be brought to the foreground. Stick a little bit of that blue over on this page as well. Just clean off my brush. Don't know where I'm going over there, but I know I'll want to have some of that symmetry of color on both pages. All right. So my favorite thing, well, you know, all the things are my favorite thing, is to put paint on and then take paint off. Put paint on and then take paint off. And I'm just cleaning off the edge of my card here. My catalyst wedge is around here somewhere, but and oh, look at that. Now I'm starting to build up those layers, getting those under layers wet and pull back some of those colors underneath. They're peeking through. It's what I love about the the oil pastels. Interestingly, it didn't work as well on the tape. So no hidden layers are ever truly hidden. It's the benefit of putting the gesso over the top. And then all I had to do was get that top layer a little bit wet again and scrape that paint, and I'm bringing back those marks. And it's so fun to watch these marks be revealed. So again, the creator is in that innovative stage of what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? So I'm going to let that page just kind of hang out over there for now. And I'm really going to come in and focus on this page. So I'm going to come in with my matte medium. I'm not going to dry this. I think it's probably pretty dry. I'm going to put that lid on my paint so I don't knock it over, the cats don't knock it over. Clean off my palette knife. Palette knife is great for spreading matte medium, especially if you have a tall jar like I do and it's hard to get down in there. So using a palette knife can be really awesome for that. So just putting some of that matte medium down. Again, don't care if these get paint on them, they're just layers, right? I'm just using them to create a little more texture on my page. And also I love just this little bit of music, little bit of handwriting, that beautiful Asian script starts to, again, these are all resonant of the creator archetype. We've got writing, we've got music, we've got this beautiful sketchy drawn figure. But I'm still seeing color and shape behind all of this. Woof. My husband just dropped something over the top of my head. It startled me. It was very loud. I think maybe one more little piece of music on here somewhere. All right. So again, just that playfulness of learning to, and I know that gets really shiny when the matte medium is wet on there. It's even a little more shiny, but you can start to see all the color and where things are built up, just some little bits of collage in there. If I had wanted these to really pop out even more, I could have just added a little white paint underneath them, and that would have allowed me to have those bits show, but that didn't matter so much right now as the intention of planting all these creator seeds on the page. And this is the stage that I would definitely call the messy middle, right? Like there's nothing super appealing. There's lots of layers and color. There's things that make me happy, but I don't know where the story is going yet. And so I have a couple of options at this point. I could go back to my white gesso, paint over the whole thing one more time, but I'm not quite ready to do that yet. Instead, what I feel I want to do is to start looking through my images, make some space on my table here. And I pulled things that felt like the creator this morning. Oh, we got glare everywhere this morning. So I had pulled these bugs yesterday too, but I think these bugs are going to go on the creator, innovator, scientist side. So I'm going to cut some of these bugs out. I don't know yet if they're going to be the gift or the shadow. I don't love bugs, so they're feeling a little bit shadowy to me. I really loved this image of the creator creating himself. The creator creating himself. So this may be that dominant image. And again, it's, all those blues there. So loving that. I had pulled and trimmed this one yesterday because there's something about it that felt sagey, but it was very clear once I cut it out that it was the creative archetype. She, to me, definitely is going to be my shadow side. Um, Not for any fault of her own, but just this prima donna, diva, perfection. It's an incredibly beautiful pose, a beautiful dancer, but there is that sort of obsession with perfection. And I think it's also that black background really speaks of the shadow to me. I loved this image and felt like it was really a great focal image for that creator archetype. And this was an ad for Microsoft, right? But it's this idea that, from within him are flowing and bursting forth all of these ideas. So this is both artful and innovative, and he's kind of in his happy place. So this one felt very much like a creator archetype as well. And I'm wondering, do I need both or am I going to use one? But this is how I just start to sift through the image and say, does this image illustrate the story that I'm trying to tell with my page? I even loved this beautiful black and white image of this woman with, looks like maybe a harp here in the background, and this beautiful carving. And she has this very sort of obsessive, focused look on her face. So you can see I pulled way more images than I need. I loved this woman in the big picture. She was standing in some water and she has this big long thing of seaweed, but there's this focus on her face as well. So lots going on. I loved this. This is a peacock that's made entirely of paper. So beautiful. Such gorgeous art by Yulia Brodskaya. I loved it. There's a book on this bookshelf that says How to Cook Everything, which again, it's that obsessive creator archetype. Loved these sort of Matisse-like paper cutouts. Again, that sense of focus on the face. So you can see that I just sort of went through my stash and pulled everything. This is a creator's dream space with all the tools of her trade. Clearly, this is primarily a fiber artist. Loved this picture of Hong Kong and this futuristic design, right? So that again, dreamlike creator, innovator, inventor, the architect. It helps a lot, I think, Kay, to look at both the gift and the shadow together. They're not separate. I also loved this beautiful, looks like maybe this is in Spain. It says the tiny town of Breñas near Haro, but I don't know where either of those are. But this gorgeous architecture. I loved this beautiful floral painting that says imperfect on it. Because in those initial stages of ideas, the creator is brilliant at just flowing out those ideas and not expecting perfection. It's the shadow side that gets too far over into perfection. But I have way too much, and I'm also present to the size of the journal that I'm working in. So let's see what we've got going on here. It's getting dry, but it's not dry yet. So I kind of like this character. I like her and her sense of focus. but I also really like this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fussy cut him out and away from the page. My scissors are buried under stacks of paper, and see what he looks like. I can't tell when the image is part of somebody else's background. And I want to see how he's going to fit on my page and my story. And as you're working with intuitive collage and archetypes, it's about the image of the picture. It's not about gender. It's not about color of someone's skin. It really is making sure that you're telling the story you want to tell. And so to open up your mind to allowing the right images to surface. It doesn't need to look like you. Letting people from other cultures appear in your journal opens your mind to just different ways of looking at things. And when I was working with the Sage archetype yesterday, I was very mindful of how I picked a wise older woman to represent the gift and a mean looking picture of Alfred Hitchcock to represent the shadow side of the sage. And to be present to, it wasn't about the male, female, masculine, feminine. They were just the right pictures, right? And so just being present to, I noticed myself this morning, it's like all my shadows could be male, and that didn't feel good either. So just being present to that. All right, so this is feeling really, really interesting to have him on this page with these other bits and pieces of music. Again, it's not maybe the prettiest page, so I might think about what else do I want to add here or do to the background to really maybe make him stand up and to just brighten that up. But I love this down here. I want that to stay uncovered. I love that this is coming from his heart and not his head. So this is feeling like a really interesting story. Interesting story. Good casting. Thank you, Marion. Yes, being mindful of our casting. And I'm just sort of curious if somehow she wants to be on this page as well. The more scientific here, but then also the nature loving creator there. So it feels like they're both important to have here on the page to tell a more complete story of different aspects. So we have the artist, architect, and the inventor. We definitely have the dreamer. So feeling like they're all starting to come together and deciding what do I want to do to make them really pop out from the background. And I'm feeling like I'm going to come in and put some yellow on the page. So again, just letting all these colors, right, just kind of speak to me, tell me their story. It's going to end up looking a little bit green over the top of that blue. So I'm just coming in with kind of a thin layer Mostly I want to be able to brighten up my background, so my collage images are going to show a little bit more. Plus in this image, there's a lot of yellow. So just by bringing in that yellow, we're starting to see him really pop out on our surface more. I'm working with a dry brush and pretty, small amounts of paint here to just brush that on to keep that transparency, right? I can still see those marks and shapes from some of that original fun that I had with the oil pastel way in the background. And so I love that I can still see some of that. All right, so that feels a little bit better. Maybe a little bit more yellow here. Where's our sweet nature lover here? Interesting, now that I put the yellow on there, I'm like, I'm not sure she does need to be there. Or sometimes when I have a sense that something needs to be on the page, but it's not quite fitting, this is when I create a tag or a tip in where I might add an extra sheet of paper here and create kind of that unfolding opportunity. So I'm going to work on her in just a minute. And I'm going to add some yellow. Clearly I stuck a brush with some red on it into my yellow. There are so many fun ways to kind of expand our pages and the stories that they're telling. All right. So if we tuck him way over there to the edge. So much fun innovation going on here, and I'm wondering if this is, I think, popcorn, right? So the popcorn ideas can feel like popcorn bursting, and I want to cut a little bit more of the white off over here. Of course, keeping those two of those flying saucers. Maybe if I let go of that one, he's going to fit a little bit better on my page. All right, that's making me a little bit happier. And I'm just going to stick him down on here with a glue stick because I don't know that I'm going to paint over the top of him. If I decided I was going to paint over the top of him, I would go back and pretty face on the back too. It's so funny sometimes, when you turn magazine images, there find something on the other side that was even more important than what was on the front side. But if I decided I wanted to add more paint or marks over the top of my magazine image, I could go right over it with Posca or gel pen. But if I were going to use paint, I would probably add a layer of gel medium over the top. But using glue stick allows me also to place the image on the page and still be able to move that image. If I get it down and I'm like, it's not quite right. Okay, I love how this is sort of bleeding over here into the edge of my page. And I can even make it feel a little more incorporated by just adding a little of my yellow along the edge. These stories never cease to amaze me. I always am deeply in awe and appreciative of this process, of this creative play, and how it just takes me on just such interesting journeys. And I start to see new things, things that I hadn't thought about. Just coming in, and again, that same, making the edges of him outside the drawing just feel a little more solid on the page. So we get him standing out just a little bit more. This is the fussy perfectionist part, not necessary. I think I like to tell myself I'm not a perfectionist, and then I find myself in moments doing things that definitely are the fussy bits. And so I'm just present and noticing that, right? I don't want to go into that shadow side of the creator. Again, interesting page, interesting story that it's telling. Bringing her back one more time. She really wants to be on this page. She's being pretty insistent about being right here on the page. There's something about her that sort of softens or expands the story that I'm feeling drawn to. And I don't think a tag would have that same impact. So I'm going to get her down on the page as well. And I'm okay with little bits and pieces of the images hanging over edges. It's my journal, it's a working journal, it's a storytelling journal. So I don't need any of it to be perfect. So her arm may just hang off a little bit. So she's definitely hanging over the edge. And I'll probably clip that bottom piece off, but I'm going to let the rest of her really hang over there. Yeah, she definitely wanted to be on there. Something about the color story that it needed that little balance of darks and lights there, right? That there was something that I wanted to move. So you notice I've got these dark colors now moving my eye around the whole story. So it may not even have been as much about her as it was about the color story and how my eye was moving around the page. So interesting to just watch these pages come together. And I'm wanting to bring in a little more of some of those bright colors to the background. Just maybe add a few more marks, or I wonder if I could even, let's see. Come in here and get all the way back. To some of those marks on the page. The skewer is great for this, but I don't have one sitting right in front of me. So just bringing some of those oranges back. I'm still wanting to come in with a little bit more color on the page. Nice dry brush. Hey, Georgia, you gonna come say hello this morning? Just feeling like it needs some little more of those pops of color in there to, again, just make sure I'm getting that color in a few different places around the page. I found myself doing this on the page yesterday too, wanting to just, again, with these magazine images, to have some of my own marks and color down here on the page. Just trusting that intuition, that play, seeing where things want to go. It is definitely a playful, fairly almost explosive page, which feels like that creator energy arising from all over. And I'm wanting a little bit of red. Let's try this fluorescent. See what that is. And I'm going to try and use the same brush, but to bring some different marks in here. So they're just a little variety, so all the marks don't look the same. Again, just moving that color so it's in a few different places around the page. Maybe even right over the top of our image to brighten that up. And now I'm looking at it going, yeah, that's way too busy. I don't like any of that. And this is what I always say, is that everything is paint overable. And we don't know until we try what's going to work. I don't necessarily want to lose the color, but I don't want those marks on there to be quite that bold. They're just making my page feel a little bit busy. So it's what I love about acrylic paints and baby wipes. You can just go in and soften all that up, especially, and this is the other benefit of using matte medium over your collage. You can just push all that color back. So now I start to have some of that color in those marks, but they aren't so dramatic. They look a little more intentional. A little more playful and less, more like things are blooming and coming to the surface, but not at the surface. I really want my images to be the thing that stands out on the surface. And I'm definitely feeling like it needs to say the name of the archetype on here so I don't forget. And I didn't do that the last couple of days, but this one feels like it wants to say the creator right here. And so let's see what trouble we can get up to. So this has a purple undertone, and I don't have any purple on my page, so I may get this down and not like it at all. And it may be white enough over the top that it doesn't matter. And nope, I don't like that. It needs to be white. So we can just use the back of that. I like the music framing it. And I'm just going to come in, and I could write it over the top, but it won't show as much. And I also feel like this is going to match this bit of white up here and also create, so then we have the black and white story being a little more, there's a lot more movement around the page just from the color story. Just coming in with my own handwriting. And I didn't leave myself enough space on there, so I'm going to do it again. I have so much scrap paper lying around here. So a trick, if you're doing writing on a page like this and you want to make a label, don't cut it out first like I did. So cut it out after you write the word, because then you're not worrying about trying to squeeze it onto the piece of paper. And that feels better. So I have my same black and white mimicked like I do in other places around the page. Might even put archetype down here on the bottom. Even that up just a little bit more. I kind of like that too. Brightens up and breaks up this big black where her boots are standing in the water here. And get my glue stick. So you can see that this is not a fast process, right? This is an intuitive sort of step by step, paying attention to where the journey is taking you, letting the page unfold. It's a very different approach to creating. Make sure I spell archetype right. I wrote that with a smaller pen because my piece of paper was smaller and I want creator to stand out. And again, I'm always looking for those ways that I can just, excuse me, create differences on the page. All right. So it's a fun page. It's also a very chaotic page, but I think that's the nature of the creator and the ideas and the feeling like there's, for me personally, that creator archetype is pulled in so many directions and ideas, right? So there's the innovation of ideas, right? There's the connection and play with nature. There's love of drawing and art. So it feels like there's a lot happening on this page, a lot happening on this page. And I think it really represents that creator archetype. But I'm also looking at where could I maybe just calm this down just a little bit? Where can I calm it down just a little bit? And maybe I want to bring that some of that white back in here around these flying saucers and make them stand out a little bit more. We've got some little cloudy smoke coming out of the back of that car. What if I brightened him up as well? Still wanting to see him behind. Pushes him back a little bit further. It is. Yeah, Kay, exactly. You just do it and then redo it and redo it and redo it until that story is complete. And white can be your best friend to brighten things up, and working with a thin fluid acrylic, you can brighten things up without losing everything that's behind. It just moves some of those other layers of the story to the background. The story I'm trying to tell in this piece is about the images, right? It's about what's going on in these images. It's not about all this chaos going on behind. And this one took me longer to create. I did both pages in just over an hour yesterday. And so noticing my own obsession with getting the story right today as I'm sitting in that energy of the creator. What am I overthinking and overdoing? But now the story is clear, right? Now the story is clear. I haven't lost any of the things that were underneath. I've just pushed them all back to the background just a little bit so that my images really pop out. And the last thing I think I'm going to do is I'm going to bring her long strand of seaweed back so we kind of know what it is that she's holding on to. Again, just noticing my own story, my own reactions, putting on paint, pushing that paint back. Letting some of that color in those marks show through, but that white just helps to sort of calm everything down and bring that primary story back to the surface again. All right, it's feeling better. Is that dry? It's probably not dry enough. So this is my last step, is I'm gonna add some of that seaweed and then I'll be complete for today. Again, just sort of adding some of my own marks. I'm gonna let it sit for a while. I might decide I wanna come back and add a little bit of paint to this, but I don't think it's gonna need it. I'm gonna add some little seaweed-like leaves here. Again, it's that just creative innovation, looking for inspiration everywhere. I think that's something about the archetype of the creator that we can all appreciate and sit with ourselves, is that the more we look up, look around, read, study, play, there's inspiration to be found everywhere. And when we've been feeling like we're creatively blocked or stuck and we can't face the blank page, it's often we just need fresh innovation. We need fresh innovation. These little fussy bits are often my favorite parts, and just, again, always looking at how can I just go in and change these up so that they just sort of become a little bit more my own. Love this contour drawing of this face. It's a single line drawing of a face. Just pulling that back a little bit. And so that feels complete as the Creator Archtype story. A little chaotic, a lot of ideas, a lot going on. And I'm very appreciative of the journey it took me on, because it made me look at the own shadow side of my creator. And hopefully I'll have some time later on to do that page, and we'll move on tomorrow. So if you're with me live, help me pick tomorrow's archetype. Let me find my wheel here. So we haven't done Explorer. Let's see. So we're working our way through the archetype wheel and the 12 Jungian archetypes, and we've done Creator, Sage, and Magician. Rebel might be fun. Explorer, Caregiver, Lover, Jester. Jester's always a fun one to look at in our art. The Innocence, always a great one. So the last couple of days, I literally just closed my eyes and picked a different place on the wheel. So we're going to do the Every Person tomorrow. And the Every Person cares deeply about belonging and connection. And I'll say more about what that, the ordinary man is what it's often called. Every person is more appropriate today. But it's that sort of They always want to be one of the crowd. They don't want to stand out like the creator does. So they're a good opposite maybe to play with. But I'm open for feedback and input on order of these things to play with. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. This was our exploration of the Creator Archetype. I'm Dr. Minette. This is Painting in Your PJs Live. I will be back tomorrow morning with the Every Person Archetype and some more creative play. Thank you so much for joining me live or for watching the replay. Deeply appreciative of the time you spend. And I would love you to give me a thumbs up on the video if you like the video so that more people would see it. And if you're new to me, to be sure to subscribe as well. Have a great rest of your day.